Hi, this is Luann with Rockin Book Review, and I'm so happy to be here with Annmarie Marchant, who is a new author and has an exciting story to share. Before we get started, I'd like to get acquainted with you and let the audience know a little bit more about you, where you grew up, how many siblings you have, your favorite activities, and maybe a couple of memories or experiences that have had an impact in your life.
Yeah, thanks, Luann. Lovely to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, so you can hear from my accent, I'm from the UK. So I grew up with two elder brothers. So I was the youngest. Um, my father was in the Navy for many years, and then he joined the Coast Guard. So we traveled a little bit with his work. And my mum was a stay-at-home mum. And yeah, we lived a very simple life, I would say, very simple life. But actually, with that, I had a lot of freedom as a young child, not as a very little child, but obviously age related. And when I was 8, moved up to Northumberland, which is the most northern county in the UK. And I had an amazing time there. I was by the beach and sand dunes and a harbour. So I had a really, really free kind of childhood, actually, where a lot of able to just go roaming and have adventures. And I don't think you can do that so much these days. So I'm very grateful, actually, for that. It was a very simple childhood, but I enjoyed that freedom, I would say. Yeah, and life again, as I say, was very simple. So I just enjoyed a simple life. And I think back then it was a lot of you made your own entertainment. So I loved reading. I loved going in a bookshop to buy a new book. That was always very exciting. And I learned, to sort of taught myself to do tapestry and crochet and knitting, that kind of thing. So yeah, it was, as I say, quite a simple upbringing.
And is there a couple of experiences that have had an impact in your life that you can think of?
So as a child, you mean,
or a youth? Yeah.
I can't really think of any, to be honest. It was, I suppose, the main thing was actually moving. When we moved when I was 8 years old, that felt quite strange, going to a new place. And then again, when I was 18, we moved again back down to the south of England, and it's quite tricky because at 18 I'd made friends. I was at college, and so I had to it felt like I had to start my life again at 18, moving to a new place. I knew nobody. So I wasn't that was a bit upsetting at the time. But it was a good opportunity, to kind of start to make new friends when I went to college, and start in my working career, I guess. But yeah, it took a little while to settle, I have to be honest.
And apparently it was kind of stressful since you were shy and introverted and all these things. I can't imagine how that would have felt when you're really timid and going to new places, making new friends and so forth. But you were the studious and really good girl type of a person. So why is that bad?
It's not bad. No, it's not, it was never a judgment as such. But I think for me, Luann, it was now, in the place I'm in my life now, where I've built confidence and more relaxed, in new situations, and feel I have something of value to say. I guess I just didn't feel I had a lot to give and a lot to say of any value, to be honest. And so that was because I was very shy. The upbringing was, that sense of, we never don't answer back, and not to have basically a lot of our own opinions, I would say. And that's not judging my parents for that, but that was the upbringing that I had.
So I feel that being a people pleaser lessens a person's individuality.
Yeah, absolutely, I really do. And I think that you don't know what you don't know. And obviously, so for many years that was just, I had no complaints about my upbringing as such. I never thought, oh my God, I had a bad upbringing or anything. That's certainly not what I experienced. But I could see how, in a way, I was smothered in a way particularly, I'd say from my mum, it was always very, be careful here, don't do that. And so there wasn't that sense of, life is safe in a way. You always had to kind of watch your back or just be careful. And so that induces a limitation in a way of things to do. And that did affect me for sure. But I didn't know it for many years until I started to look at myself and do inner work, and then I could see, my goodness, I can see why. Yeah. And I never wanted to travel, like a lot of young adults, they want to go and see the world and go off backpacking. And that was like my idea of hell. It was like, oh my God. It was but I now see, because there was a lot of fear, of like going off on my own or into new environments. But thankfully that's changed. But it took a long time. Yeah.
I hadn't thought of it before. I was shy in a group of people, and I was raised with a bunch of boys on a farm. So I was comfortable with boys, but with girls, it seemed like I was always saying the wrong thing and they were getting mad at me. And because boys, you'd say things flat out, and girls, you have to be more careful and pat it. But,
okay.
But anyway, it was, I was thinking when I was reading your biography that I never was secure or within myself. I had a wonderful parents, but I never felt real confident. Now I was always opinionated and curious, so I was always raising my hand in class and asking questions. But then you get me in a group and I'd freeze up. I wouldn't know what to say. So I was wondering, maybe because I'm like you. My mother was British, raised British, and she was very proper, and she was kind, but she raised me to be proper in my speech and in my mannerisms and so forth. I just wondered if there was a correlation there or not. After a series of tragedies, you took a different look at your life and did a turnaround in your life. Can you share what those tragedies were and what effect they had on you?
Yeah, the main thing really was I was married and I had my first child, so he was about a year old, and my elder brother Steve and his partner had also had a baby, and then the tragic news came that my brother and his partner both had been killed in a car accident, and their young son, who was pretty much the same age as my son, was in the back of the car. He survived, but obviously he was orphaned overnight, and he had frontal brain damage because of the accident, and nobody knew if he would survive, and how that would affect him. So it was very, very difficult time of my life, and I think what added to it as well, I mean, it was obviously them both dying was tragic enough, and obviously my nephew Matthew being orphans was another tragedy. But I think what the worst thing also that added to that was that my brother and his partner had tried for years to have a child, but for whatever reason, she couldn't carry a baby. So she lost, I think it was 3 or 4 children, young. She miscarried. So to have Matthew, she literally had to go into hospital and have complete bed rest. She wasn't allowed to put a foot off the bed because that her pelvis and everything couldn't carry the weight of a baby. So eventually, as she got to, I think 8 months, they said, the baby is now, okay, so you can come off the bed. But all her muscles had seized up, because she'd been in bed for all that time. But that's what the price they paid for her to carry the baby to full term. So they, of course, were, delighted to have Matthew after everything they'd gone through. So when this accident happened, it was just, for me, it was just, I could not fathom why this could happen and how much they wanted this child, and now they would never see him grow up and he would never see them. So it was hard, and I just pushed all the grief down. It was too big, and I just didn't know how to deal with it. I was on survival. Absolutely. I didn't know that at the time. Subsequently, years later, when I started to look at it and allow the grief to come, I could see how shut down I had been. And I think, seeing my mum as well, she was just obviously devastated having lost her son. And So it was a very, very difficult time. And I also realized, and I didn't again at the time know it, but I had this what they call survival guilt. I don't know if you've heard of it, but like with my son, who was, as I say, about the same age as Matthew. So when he was doing his first, first walking and all the different firsts, I was happy, but then I felt guilty because it's like, oh my God, Steve and Push they can't see this. So it was always marred with, oh my God, they're never going to see this. And so it was always tainted. It was always tainted. So there was a lot of pain there, a lot.
In your situation, so many people have cursed God. What made you go on a search spiritually?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And it's not a simple answer. I wasn't seeking at all, to be honest. I went on after to have my second child, and then I guess how it's shifted and started to change was when both my children were quite young. I talk about this experience that happened called the falling, and I talk about it in the Ripple of Awakening, the book. And that was the shift, if you like. And what happened was I was, doing my usual, as I describe it, headless chicken, busy mum, trying to be a good wife, a good mother, and all the stresses that go with having young children, still not having dealt with my grief at all. So that was still bottled down. And I had this experience I was just standing in my bedroom, and this feeling started to descend over me. And it's really hard to put into words, but it felt like I was about to fall off a cliff into my death, into an abyss. And I'd never experienced anything like it. And I've not experienced anything since like it, but it was so, so frightening. And I had no idea what was happening to me. And I screamed out in despair, something like, help, I can't do this anymore. And I screamed because I was, when you're in that point of utter fear and just complete bewilderment. And then I kind of pulled myself together, because the kids were there, and I just sort of get on with it with no concept of what had just happened. But then what started to happen was a few weeks after that incident, I was looking through a local paper at the evening classes, and I kind of found this particular course, just an evening class, around alternative therapies and holistic therapies. And I knew nothing about it, right? I had no religion, I had no faith. I was very black and white. I had to see things before I would believe them. But this intrigued me, and I thought, I'll just go and find out about it. And I was absolutely blown away on the first class. And I kind of sat there, Luann afterwards, and I went, oh my God, there's another way. It's like there's another world out there that I had no concept of. And I was like, wow, how does this guy know all this stuff? I was intrigued by this guy. And I went every week for 6 weeks, and I couldn't wait to go. It was only 2 hours each week. And I thought, wow, this is incredible. And I signed up for a few other courses that he ran. And one was on NLP, one was on vibrational healing, another one was on naturopathy and holistic well-being. And I was hungry because it was like a whole new world. And then a year later, I was looking through a paper again to see what else, and the paper this time literally fell open, and on it was this course, a full-time course to train to be a holistic therapist. And I thought, wow, could I do this? And then I did that, and so the trajectory of my life started to move in a completely different direction. And it was only 5 or 6 years later that I actually joined the dots, and I think, oh my goodness, that day when I had that experience in my bedroom, when I screamed out for help, my life started to change direction. And Annmarie didn't plan it, but it was, as I say, years later that I started to see the connection. And then, of course, being in that new world, I started to meet different people, and my mind started to open to, this kind of spiritual world. But even then it was very tentative because it all felt a bit woo-woo for me to start with, because I was, as I say, so black and white. But meeting different people, this is what kind of then started to happen. I met different people. They recommended different books. I ended up meeting someone who was running a psychic development group and a meditation group. And I wasn't looking for that either. But the way that happened, and it just started to open up all these new things in my world. So it wasn't a conscious choice. It just kind of, the universe was going, okay, Annmarie, you want some help, I'm going to give it to you. And it's like, but I didn't know that. And I was, even at that point, I didn't have a belief in God or anything. You know, the universe, I was starting to get an understanding of. I was kind of comfortable with that, I guess, to a degree. But for me, I had to experience things firsthand. And so when I started to do the psychic development group and meditation, I would literally feel this energy. And I remember in the early days, I literally had to hold on to the seat because my body was starting to, you know, vibrate, and all this energy was starting to, and it was like, oh my goodness, what's happening? And then I'd start to see images and hear voices of spirit, and it was like, whoa, what is this? But so it was a gradual thing. And then I think by that point, there was things I hadn't dealt still at that point with the grief. I hadn't looked at that. What I started to see was that I was trying to fix everything outside of me. I had all the qualifications by that point. I was a holistic therapist, NLP practitioner, hypnotherapist, and it was phenomenal. And I'd loved it. But it was always about everything outside. And I started to realize I had to start to go in. And that wasn't a prospect that I was appealing. It felt big.
I'm curious, has your mother accepted this?
I mean, she's passed now. She passed a few years ago. No, she never came to terms and healed it. No, she didn't. I did eventually, you know, through a lot of inner work and then actually realizing that the spirit is eternal. But I didn't know that for a long time. It took a lot of work for me and then to feel them and to know without doubt they were at peace and in love. They were in the ultimate love. And I did have conversations.
When you go through this experience, but it's hard to get somebody else to experience or try if they're very against it. I know we had the same situation with my husband's family. And the reason I asked you is because it's been many years. And even though they see the growth in my husband and the change in him and everything else, they won't even come close to accepting his new life. And that's what I was curious about, if your mother was more open.
Oh, I thought you meant what, my journey? Or
with your journey, yeah.
Oh, yes, she was
more open to receiving it herself.
Not receiving it, no. But I thought you meant about my brother dying. She never came to terms with that, no. But she's okay. Yeah, she saw me changing, and I think at times it was like, whoa, you know, what's kind of going on. And yeah, and part of that was I then ended up going through a divorce, which was very painful as well. And of course, a parent doesn't like to see their child in distress. But, you know, we had a good relationship, my mum and I used to say to her, you know, because she said to me, how do you know all this stuff? You know, how can you believe that, you know, look, with my brother and partner, that they're at peace and where they are? And I said, it's one of those journeys I've been on, Mum, and I honestly feel at peace. And I said, I hope one day you will. And it did open up some beautiful conversations. And I did say to her once, I said one day, I said, when you're with them in spirit, I said, you will let me know that you now understand where they are. And she said, what do you mean? She said, well, I come down and haunt you. And I said, no. I said, but I will know that you know. And she was okay. And because I knew that once she'd gone over to the other side, she'd be with them. So I knew that would again bring her peace. But yeah, so this lifetime, that wasn't her journey to explore other areas, you know, and that's okay, you know. That's that. We all have different things we come here to learn, don't we?
It's heartbreaking watching other people, isn't it? We lost our 21-year, well, she would have been 21 in just a couple of weeks, daughter when she hit dry ice and a truck ran over her car and killed her instantly. I thought, how do people survive this when they don't have that belief of an eternal life, an afterlife? It just breaks my heart to think of it. Okay, so you found yourself on the threshold of becoming a minister. Tell us about that.
Yeah, wow. So as I mentioned, I wasn't a believer of God. I was definitely opening my mind to new things. And so after that group I was in, the psychic development group and meditation group, I'd been there a couple of years and it was incredible. But there was something in me was kind of saying, there's something else, there's something more. And I kind of felt I'd outgrown that group. And then again, through a series of quote coincidences, I bumped into a lady I vaguely knew. And she just said, oh, Annmarie, there's a new group starting just down the road from you in a few weeks with a lady called Sarah. And I went, oh, okay. And she said she works with angels and meditation. And I thought, okay. So I got the number of this lady. I called her up and I sort of said about a few things. And she said, yeah, come along. So I went along to Sarah's group, and the love that I felt when I went each week to this group was not like anything I'd felt before. I didn't understand it, but it felt good. And the sort of the depths I was going in, the meditation she was running was just like on another level. And I remember having one experience when I was so in bliss. It was the first time I'd experienced bliss. And I thought, I never want to leave this. I want to stay in this bliss forever. Of course, that didn't happen. But she was working with angels. And now even that was quite a big step for me. But because of the love I felt, I thought, well, this feels good. So I trusted it. And at the time, she was training to be an interfaith minister. And I thought, oh, well, that's very nice for her. She's doing that thing, but that's not for me. I'm very happy for her. So she got ordained a year or two later. And by that time, she was running retreats. And I went on my first retreat with her. And again, oh my goodness me, it was one of the most profound experiences of my life. My heart started to crack open, properly. And the love that I felt again on that weekend was off the scale. I mean, not of this world. And I thought, I don't know what this is, but my goodness, this is powerful. And then I'd say a couple of years after the first retreat, a lady she was working with, a lady called Mary, who was also an interfaith minister, she'd been guided to set up a ministry herself and train ministers. And even then I thought, I don't think that's for me. But again, the universe had other ideas. They both invited me to join them at a retreat that they were running for me to be a helper. And I thought, oh yeah, great. What a joy, to go and help them. On the last day of the retreat that they were running, they said to the whole group, welcome to our world. This is how we live every day. And I sat there and I thought, I want this every day, this feeling. I don't just want it when I go on a retreat or a workshop and go home and then, feel the emptiness again or that loneliness in my pit of my belly. I thought, I want this every day. And so I called them upstairs. I said, okay, if you want me to do this training with Mary, I want to sign and I want it today. And that was quite bold for me. I didn't do things like that. But I did that day. Anyway, a lady that was in the group, she asked to work with me to do some readings, and I was just there as a helper, but she asked and I said okay. And then she did this incredible channeling reading and she got my brother through, and I was in tears, and I thought, that's my sign. I just knew it. And it scared me, to think of, to do this kind of training to be a minister myself. But there was something in me that it was like, this is right for you, Annmarie. And I also remembered after that workshop driving home and thinking, oh my God, what have I done to do this? What am I doing? And I remember saying again to them upstairs, I said, okay, if you really want me to do this, you need to sort the finances out because I don't have it. And again, there was another miracle within a few weeks. A friend of a friend who'd been traveling, she needed a place to stay and I had a spare room. And she came and she literally stayed for the whole period of the time I was doing my training, which pretty much paid for most of the training. So everything was lining up for me to do it. And I'm so grateful because it changed my life. It really did.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's hard to tell others how these feelings hit. We got to move. Okay. So you have written your first book, The Ripple of Awakening, a mighty companion to the spiritual awakening journey. Tell us a little bit about your book.
So the book is the book I wanted when my life was falling apart, really. That's what I would say. When I was going through a lot of the dark nights of the soul and actually starting to do the inner work. It wasn't easy. There had been so much grief, as I said to you, and lots of stuff I hadn't processed. I was going through a menopause, a divorce, and a spiritual awakening. It was tough. And there were times when I was literally on my knees thinking, what is going on here? It was not a good time. Many times I just felt overwhelmed, many times. So many years later, I thought eventually when I started to come through the other side of that, and it was a long process and different levels of things I had to experience. And it was really is the book that it was almost like a gift that I would have given that person to me, to say, here you go, Annmarie, you're not crazy. This is what's happening to you, and that there's a way through it. And so it helps the reader to see the different stages and phases of an awakening. And I realized that there are those defined stages and phases, because I also interviewed people who'd gone through their own awakening, and I could see the commonalities, the themes that were coming up. And I thought it just felt really guided, to bring that information together for people to support them too, and to highlight these things that happen. And I remember thinking, well, I don't want this book to be about me, I want it to be about supporting people. But as I was writing it, I couldn't not write the experiences I had. It kind of just was something in me that just took over. So I thought, okay, trust it, because I was learning to trust, by that point. And I have to say that quite a few people who've read it, they said, Annmarie, the bits where you share your experience for me were the best bits. And I went, oh, okay. They said, because it makes it relatable, it makes it, real. And I don't paint a pretty picture in the book. I'm really real about the experiences I had, because it's not always pretty. But what I hope the book also offers is hope, to know that as you go through these stages, it's leading you to a place of such joy and a connection to a love. Again, call that what you will, God, universe, whatever that is, that can never leave you, and you are part of it, and it's eternal, and it's there to help you every step of the journey. And if nothing else, that people can realize that there is this love you can tap into that is available to everyone without exception, regardless of your beliefs, of your religion or your not beliefs. It loves you unconditionally. And it's part of the journey, I think, also is allowing that in and receiving it, because that was the big journey for me, to actually go from not believing in God to a 360 turnaround to now then working as a minister for God, and all that involves. So it was channeled parts of it. I remember being prompted in the middle of one night and just got this message in my head, okay, Annmarie, it's time. I want this message to get out there. So yeah, there it is.
Wonderful.
And the intention is to help people, really, and to offer a hand to hold, in a way, that hand that I felt I needed. And I hope that this is for some people that feel that from the book.
And I think it centers on, so many people don't want to believe things that are true, but truth is truth. And I believe that God, we are all literally children of God. So we're all brothers and sisters on this earth. And I believe that with all my heart. And so like you say, it doesn't matter what color, religion, or belief system you have, He loves you, because you are His child, whether you want to accept it or not.
Exactly. Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself, my lovely. Yeah. And that's the truth. That's what the awakening is waking us up to. And of course, if you've got stuff around God, which many people do, as I did, that's part of the journey to, again, it doesn't matter what the name is, that source doesn't care. Call it anything you like. It doesn't matter. But of course, it can be a barrier for many people. So that's something also in the Ripple of Awakening I bring in. Let's have a look at this. Let's uncover it. Because if we have a block against this bigger picture, or we don't feel worthy of it, or, God didn't help me out then, like I could have held all of that happened to my brother, It was God that did it. But no, God didn't do that. No way.
If you think of eternity, this earth life is just a grain of sand in eternity. So God sees the big picture, where we have funnel vision. But
Yes.
anyhow, I think it's wonderful. And I'm looking forward to reading it and sharing my views on it. And I'm sure they'll be positive because talking to you, it's just been a delight.
Thank you. Likewise.
I appreciate you sharing.
Honestly, it really is my pleasure. I feel so grateful for these opportunities. It feels like the ripple of what I went through, can touch other people. And that's really what this is about. And I'm sure you know that with the world you live in as well. We want to share it. This is what it's about. And if we can help people to come to a place of peace and acceptance, I mean, oh my goodness, what better job is there?
Unfortunately, we cannot experience that awakening if we haven't had pain or challenges. I think it's then that we're more open to feel the spiritual.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a wonderful book to get out there. And like I said, I'm anxious to read it. And for some lucky US Canada winner, go on rockinbookreviews.com and enter the giveaway for a hard copy of Annmarie Marchant's book. Is there any final comments you'd like to make before we leave?
Let's just all join in opening our hearts to this ripple continuing in whatever form, not just about this book. It's not just about the book. It's about, we're doing it for each other. And I think we really need it, don't we? And for those of, like you're saying, when we've been through it, we know that there is light. We know that there's a way through. And I think let's just help people to realize that. And let's, be there for those people, because when we're in the darkness, it's very hard to see the light. So I think, I've been so blessed with many way showers and people that held the light for me and knew who I was when I did not know. So I think that's the gift that we're all waking up to, so we can now pass this on.
Once you have that real experience, you cannot ever deny it. It's
Absolutely.
Too precious, too strong, and you want to share it with everyone.
Oh, well, bless you. And thank you for doing this, because that's what you're doing it too in a wonderful way. So thank you. And I love your picture on the background. That says it all as well, doesn't it?
My theme is, we hope that you will search the universe through books. So I thought the universe is behind me.
Oh, yes. Fantastic.
Again, thank you. You've been a delight, and I hope we can visit again.
I'd love that. I'd love it. Yeah. Thank you so much.
And we will put your website and everything on the blog and on YouTube so that they can have access to getting in contact with you. Is that all right?
Oh, thank you. That would be wonderful.
And like I said, we hope that you will search the universe through books. Goodbye for now.